Mrs. Dewar, these pages are from a recent novella by Mark Twain, a double-barreled detective story. I understand your shop is the only one in town that has a copy.
Mysteries are my specialty, Detective. The story features Sherlock Holmes. I'm sure you'd find it quite illuminating. It's hot off the press.
So you do have a copy?
Oh, I did, but it sold. But I could order you another.
Oh, I'm afraid I'm not much of one for novels. Do you know who you sold the book to?
It was a regular of mine, Annie Cranston. She works in Minnie's tea room. Quite the reader.
Good day, sir.
Good day. I'm looking for a waitress here, Miss Cranston.
Oh, that's Annie. She's over there.
Thank you. Miss Cranston, Detective Murdoch of the Toronto Constabulary.
Oh, good day, Detective.
I understand you recently purchased a novella from the Bel Air bookshop?
Yes, by Mark Twain.
May I see it?
Oh, I don't have it anymore.
Why not?
Someone took it. I left the book on the counter, and when I came back to read the next chapter after lunch, it was gone.
When was this?
About 4 days ago. A cruel thing to do. Take a novel before one knows the ending.
Do you recall if any of the pages were missing?
No.
Do you recognize this man?
I'm sorry, no. Do you have time for tea? Oh, it would be a treat for me to spend time with a real detective, not a figment of a writer's imagination.
Thank you, Miss Cranston, but I must be off.
I couldn't help but overhear. The day Annie's book went missing, I saw a man rummaging about at the counter over here. If you ask me, he seemed to know what he was looking for.
I see.
Is this about a grisly murder, Detective? Not that I'm prying or, anything.
Is this the man that you saw?
No, he was younger, more handsome.
Now, you say you would recognize him, Miss...
Ruby Rosevear. Yes, I think that I would. I could, draw a picture of him for you, if I knew how to draw. His beard was a bit thicker, I think.
Thicker beard.
What a clever thing this is, Detective Murdoch. It was your idea, wasn't it? Go on, tell me you invented it.
Yes, yes. It can be quite useful. Thicker beard.
That's him.
That's him. Right then. Miss Rosevear, what was he wearing?
He was wearing a long coat. All in all, I think he was quite shifty looking.
Shifty.
I know that the mind is the seat of reason, George, and that the mind resides in the brain.
Yes, but the brain is also the dominion of the soul, Henry.
Does that mean that the mind and the soul are connected?
Well, I suppose it's all in there. Up there, if you will.
So, smarter people with great minds also have larger souls, then? Doesn't seem right they should have both.
I do hope that was a help.
Yes, Miss Rosevear. Thank you.
Oh, it's Ruby to you, Detective.
George?
Sir, I have a photograph of my missing brain. Our two corpses appear to be the same man. Something's fishy.
Well, it certainly is. Bring them in, George. All of them.
Yes, sir. Who exactly?
Ruby! No!
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Detective.
Why are we here?
I want to thank you. You have all been most helpful in my investigation into the murder of Randolph Sampson.
Oh, well, we're glad we could help.
However, I regret to inform you that I have failed to apprehend the murderer.
Why not, Detective?
For one simple reason. Because the murderer does not exist.
But I saw him. And he was in the photograph that
You could not have seen him, Mr. Barnes, because the man in the photograph was you.
But I...
Please, Mr. Barnes, you'll have an opportunity to speak when I'm finished. Not only did the murderer not exist, but neither did Randolph Sampson. The corpse belonged to none other than Professor Andrew Richardson, whose cadaver was on its way to scientific research when it mysteriously disappeared 2 days ago. This has all been an elaborate ruse in which you all played a part.
Very good, Detective.
Please, Mrs. Dewar. Mr. Hume, you reported the fictitious Randolph Sampson missing.
Mr. Sampson is my employer, sir. He is away on business. I borrowed his office.
And his good name. The torn pages from the novel led me to your bookshop, Mrs. Dewar, and you in turn led me to Ruby Rosevear and Annie Cranston, who furthered the myth of the bearded man. I was led to a series of clues, including blue sky and the photograph which featured you, Miss Cranston, and the mysterious Mr. Maxwell, which was in fact you, Mr. Barnes, with a false beard.
It wasn't false. I grew it especially for the part.
Didn't I tell you? I knew he would figure it out.
This has all been a game and a colossal waste of the constabulary's valuable time. What were you hoping to achieve?
We wanted to watch you as you work, Detective Murdoch.
Watch me work. Why?
Well, to appreciate you.
We are such admirers of your detective skills.
And the rest.
Ruby,
We read about your successes in the newspaper, and then we meet once a month to discuss your clever ways.
All your marvelous gadgets and your analytical mind.
I'm most surprised by you, Mrs. Dewar.
We meant no harm.
But your actions were harmful. The corpse you stole was more than just a plaything in your macabre game.
What do you mean?
Professor Andrew Richardson did not die of natural causes. He was, in fact, murdered.
Murdered?
Yes. And thanks to your ridiculous antics, the true killer may very likely have escaped justice.
How uncanny. We stage a fictional mystery, and the corpse we borrow is actually a murder victim.
How did you obtain Mr. Richardson's body?
That was my doing. I was a medical student at one time and knew the building well. When we conceived the notion of a murder investigation, I agreed to procure the corpse.
And the blood at the crime scene?
Pig's blood, sir. My brother works at a slaughterhouse. It's pretty convincing, though, wasn't it?
We devised roles in the mystery around our real lives.
You concocted a fanciful amusement, which I must now undo to investigate a real murder.
perhaps we could be of assistance.
No,
Mrs. Dewar has a brilliant mind and an excellent memory. Perhaps she
you can help by staying out of my way. I'm of a mind to charge the lot of you.
What with?
Desecration of a human body. If you continue to interfere in this investigation, you will all wind up behind bars. Is that understood?
So this is the sister's house?
Yes, according to Mrs. Richardson, Hattie Baker would bring over chamomile tea every evening.
Hattie Baker! Toronto Constabulary, open up.
Remember, George, we're looking for evidence of poisoning.
Sir? Poison like this?
Yes, George. It would appear Hattie Baker is our killer. Very good, George.
Detective! Detective, stop!
What are you doing here? You were told to stay away.
Hattie Baker is not your murderer.
Oh, and what brought you to that conclusion?
The victim's wife placed the arsenic in her sister's house.
Yes, and we can prove it.
We have photographs.
But we helped you catch the real murderer.
So, Doctor, what do you make of the detective's admirers?
It seems the notion of ardent followers is something of a modern phenomenon.
A byproduct of his successes, I suppose.
The whole idea is rather fascinating, psychologically speaking.
A bunch of happy dafties, if you ask me.
I cannot believe Mr. Barnes did it.
Why would he kill Professor Richardson? He didn't know him.
The poor professor was an innocent victim in all of this. The intended target was Dr. Dempsey.
But why?
Simple revenge. Dr. Dempsey was the teacher that expelled Mr. Barnes from the Faculty of Medicine. Once he learned about your murder idea, he set his plan into action.
But why not just kill the professor and frame Dr. Dempsey? Why complicate things with a pretend murder?
Well, that's the clever part.
Clever how?
In order to frame Dr. Dempsey, Mr. Barnes had to devise the perfect murder, one that only Dr. Dempsey could commit. He knew that I would see through the masquerade and find the true identity of the victim. He also knew that we would find the true cause of death, the smothering. So he had you, Mrs. Dewar, lure Dr. Dempsey to your bookshop. He sowed the seeds of suspicion and made sure that I arrived at just the right time.
And the chloral hydrate in the doctor's bag?
Yes.
The final piece of evidence he planted.
But our friend Mr. Barnes was a little too eager. One slip of the tongue and our detective caught him out.
Congratulations, detective. May I have your autograph, detective?
All right, Miss Cranston.
Well, how about a photograph, detective?
Certainly. Why not? Henry? Could you please take a photograph of us?
Of course, sir.
Miss Cranston, Mrs. Dewar, Mr. Hume. You too, Ruby.
You're a good sport, detective.
All in a day's work.
All right. Everybody smile.